All right, let's talk briefly here about screen brightness on the brand new Galaxy Z Fold 6. We're going to be comparing it to some competitors, which I think makes sense. The Pixel Fold and the OnePlus Open. Now, this is one of these topics that I feel like often gets really oversimplified. People have a tendency to just jump to a page like GSM Arena, come down to the display, and they see, well, the foldable display on the Z Fold is 2600 nits, and if you actually go to Samsung's website, which I will do right here, let's scroll all the way down here, and let's search for the word nits, because it's difficult to find otherwise. They will tell you that it's 2600 nits on the cover display and the internal display. Then they'll jump over and look at the OnePlus Open, and they will see, hey, 2800 nits on both of these screens. The Pixel Fold, we're looking at 1550 nits peak and then 1450 nits peak for that device. They'll just look at the numbers and think that that's kind of the end-all be-all, but it's not. These things don't always pan out quite that way. And the duration, how long they can be at their peak brightness, matters a lot too. I promise there are going to be potentially some surprises here, some important data points. So what I did is I went outside yesterday. It was relatively sunny enough to do this test, and I put all three phones on a table. I posted all this on Threads in a nice organized fashion. I put them all out on this table, and I just filmed it. I just turned a camera on and filmed it until either one, something happened, a screen dimmed, and of course I went past that, or we just hit like 6 or 7 minutes, 5-6 minutes, and I felt like that's long enough to really be a general test. Most people are not just staring at their phone outside at peak brightness for 5 or 6 minutes, so I felt like that was a good enough place to be. So what we have here is after 6 minutes of max brightness, yes, they were all set to adaptive brightness. You may not know this, but if you've gone into your settings and you've turned off adaptive brightness, so that's that thing that when you're in a bright light, the screen gets brighter. If you go into the dark, the screen gets dimmer. If you have that turned off, you will never hit what is known as peak brightness, okay? Typically, that is a temporary thing. It can boost to a peak number until the device gets too warm, and then it will drop that brightness down. If you're only set to manual brightness, you will never be able to hit that peak. So these are all set to automatic brightness. After 6 minutes, this is what they looked like. If all you were basing this on was simply the peak brightness listed, you would assume the Open would be number 1, the Z Fold will be number 2, and the Pixel will be number 3, but I think quite clearly that is not the case. The Z Fold 6 was visibly brighter, and is, in this picture, visibly brighter and clearer than the OnePlus Open, which is listed at 2800 nits, but trust me when I tell you, I don't think anyone has been able to verify that number. There may be some very specific HDR content out there that may activate that peak brightness, but I've never seen it, and I've never seen a single test done to verify. It is a bright screen. It is not 2800 nits. It just isn't. This screen is brighter. But what's interesting about this, if I go back here, is that after about 3 minutes, the Pixel Fold screen did dim a little bit. You can see here, it's right there with the other displays. In fact, if you make this a little bit bigger, it's brighter at least. Maybe it's at least right there with the OnePlus Open. New puppy in the house, and it's become very difficult to get any work done while not interrupting their play. What was I saying? Before the Pixel Fold dimmed, even though it's only 1550 nits, you would look at this and say, it looks pretty darn solid. The problem, though, is that, like I just said, after about 3 minutes, it dimmed, and now it is noticeably dimmer than the other phones. So my findings are this. Z Fold 6 is the brightest, OnePlus Open is number 2, Pixel Fold is right there with the OnePlus Open until about 3 minutes go by, and then it dims, and then it is clearly number 3. But we needed to repeat this test with the inner display, and you have the brightness listed here, 26, 28, and then 1450. And as you can see here, once again, let's make this slightly bigger. Z Fold is brightest, OnePlus is second, and Pixel Fold is third. It was actually just beginning to rain, which is why this test was done for 5 minutes instead of 6 minutes like the other one. But just like the other one, the Pixel Fold started off right there with the OnePlus Open before about 3 minutes went by, and then it dimmed. This is sort of the problem with the Pixel Fold, and you can blame it on the Tensor G2. It gets a little bit too warm, and they have to bring that brightness down. Now, I will tell you, this problem was much, much worse at launch. You might have had a minute, maybe 45 seconds before it would dim. Now, you do normally get 2 or 3 minutes, and the result is, most of the time, it's totally fine outdoors for me. Again, I'm rarely just, consistently using the phone for 3 minutes outside. Normally, it's pull it out, text message, whatever it might be, put it away, and it's fine for that. But I do have to point out, these two phones do better, and the Z Fold 6 does the best of any of them, despite the fact that it should be number 2. Again, you cannot just look at the nits and think that's the full story. It never is. But of course, if we're talking about these foldable screens, we do need to touch on one more thing very quickly, and that is the visibility of the crease, because that affects how these things look when they are in sort of direct light. So here we have the Z Fold 6, and you can see that the crease is not too bad. It's definitely better than it was on my old Z Fold 4. I'll also say it's a lot more shallow than it was on those older Z Fold devices. However, if we slide this out of the way, keep the lighting consistent, I think we can all just accept that the OnePlus Open does have a far less visible crease, and it is the hardest crease to feel. You can still feel it, but it's definitely less feelable than the others. And then with the Pixel Fold, turn that screen back off, it is a sort of wider radius crease that I don't think is particularly deep, but it is wider. If you compare it to the Z Fold 6 here, you can see the difference between how those two creases look. It's sort of, two different approaches, a tighter radius versus a wider radius. But again, they both fall pretty far short of the OnePlus Open. Now, there is sort of one other complicating factor with the OnePlus Open. Unlike the other two devices, it has not quite a matte screen protector, but this inner screen is a lot less reflective than the other two. And that really helps visibility. Even though the Z Fold 6 is brighter, the OnePlus Open does hang right there with it for the most part because of that slightly more reflective screen protector. Hopefully I'm showing you some B-roll here that might kind of demonstrate how much more reflective the Z Fold 6 is versus the OnePlus Open. Of course, the Pixel Fold is also extremely glossy, and when you're outside, that makes a massive difference. And I can kind of even illustrate it looking at this, because the cover displays of all three are very glossy, and you can see that, clouds are passing overhead. That's what that white tint is. It's just clouds. There was no spot I could scrub to where that wasn't happening. I could have shaded them both, but then that kind of defeats the purpose. So it was cloudy. If you go to these inner displays, though, look how much more white that is tinted. How much more white that is tinted? That is not, because it's just not nearly as reflective. So like I said, just sort of another little thing to think about there. But overall, those are my findings. The Z Fold 6 does have the brightest screen of those three foldables, even though the numbers would tell you something different. Guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.